Hello Anashe, and welcome to this week's of the YouTube Pagan Challenge for 2017. Today we are talking about advices about how to start writing your Book of Shadows, grimoire, spellbook, whatever. And my first advice is figure out as a person if you need one. Not every witch or sorcerer can or should keep records of what they are doing. Wicca or the old tradition or British traditional witchcraft have the thing where one goes to their mentor to copy their Book of Shadows, and to pass that knowledge on as something that was implemented by Gerald B. Gardner. Okay, and I think that this is something that is very relevant for people who are in British traditional witchcraft, because this is something that shows you have, this represents the passing of the knowledge and the power to the next generation. This is something that that gives one the ability to work on their meditation skills, because, sitting down and copying something, you read the text, but you don't only read it, you interact with it in a way. And when you write those things down in your own, you have a direct spiritual link to to your master, teacher, the person that is initiating you, etc., etc. And while this is something that could be highly coveted, this is not something that necessarily is there for the lone witch. But if you are a part of the coven, see what they require you to do. Do you require to copy a certain type of texts? Or what are your needs as a witchcraft student? And we are all eternal witchcraft students. Do we need to copy spells down because they have a very precise incantations, or we need to put them down because they have many ingredients that we will never remember? Okay? If so, just write it down. Don't make it fancy. You don't have to make this fancy. You're not a calligrapher. You're not a person that needs to show off their text to anyone else. This is your work. This is your traditional spellcrafting, okay? And you don't need to make this big and fancy. And you know what? And I bet, because there is a market for handmade, fancy-ass Book of Shadows out there, I bet that if you go to witches that have those fancy-ass Book of Shadows, most of those fancy-ass Book of Shadows are just waiting there empty to have, rituals and spells transcribed in a calligraphy hand that they don't have but they are training to do. And you need to ask if this is something that you want to do. What is the point of making a fancy, beautiful calligraphy handmade book if you are the only one that reads it? Especially, if you take the full tradition of British traditional witchcraft and your books are supposed to be burnt after you're dead. So, after doing this disclaimer and telling you that you have to decide if you need to put your spells and your work in writing or not, let me tell you this. Writing itself is a magical act. The notion of putting an idea with a set of symbols is a ritual all of its own. Scribers in ancient Egypt were considered to be powerful magicians simply because they could read and write. And if you go as back as the city of Ugarit, which is a part of the Mesopotamia Empire, and you look on what happened in Babylon and Akkad, you see that people basically they learned how to read and write, transcribing deeds and receipts and the ledgers and also spells, because writing down was considered to be a magical thing. Are you a person that writing down is a magical thing for them? Some people do, some people don't. Some people are very much, the magic is very visceral. It's very something that comes from the stomach, and putting it into words limits it. And you can see that, the person who wrote about this the best to this now is Phyllis Caro in Witchcrafting. After there is a beautiful chapter about naming, okay, and the fact that the word could ring a specific color into existence, but removing that word might remove the limits from your magic. Okay, read this and try to understand what this is talking about. I'm just having my poor chrysanthemum tea. Okay, so anyway, think about this. Think if what needs to be put down into writing. And I grew up in Israel. I didn't grow up in the US. So I didn't have this thing where I was required to keep a journal at any point in my training. My thoughts and emotions weren't considered important enough to be put into writing, and the fact that I'm starting to writing stuff and putting things in writing, this is like a very liberating thing for me. This is something that, my thoughts, my memory, they have an importance that could last for generations. So, I have my Hebrew blog. It's active since 2004. My Witchcraft books and notebooks go back to 1999. And I don't always write all the time. I don't write every day. I write when I have some, magical thoughts or a technique or something that I have to explore. And you should do the same. You should forgive yourself that your handwriting isn't neat. You should forgive yourself that your book of shadows is not a grand grimoire from some fancy movie and it's a notebook. You should forgive yourself because the writing and the reading is important. Anything else is just a distraction. So, if you feel that writing is important for your craft, why don't you just take a notebook that you feel comfortable and is portable for you? Carry it with you and scribe in there the spells that worked for you so you can repeat them in the future. And if there are spells that that you need to cast for yourself and others, why don't you make a little research, see what's working for you, and write the finished results and grade them as something that worked well, didn't work so well, didn't work at all, or didn't have any apparent things there, okay? Or, you can also write yourself some notes about the offerings that you give to your deities and things like that. And not all books have to be magic books per se. I have a to-do book. I have an accounting book. Not that I need to do much accounting. I have, and of course, I have my spell book, and my spell book goes with me everywhere. It goes with me everywhere. It's small, it fits into my purse. It's not something that I keep at home. I just write my spells in there and recipes that I get from other witches in different, in different situations. Or if I sit down and I read a magic book and I find something or a spell or a notion that I need to go back to it, instead of starting putting bookmarks everywhere, I simply copy the main gist to it into the book. And it's very convenient. And again, I don't write in it daily, and it will take for me maybe years to fill. But the fact that I'm putting my stuff in there, this is what's working for me. And I would love to sit and watch and see what's working for you guys out there. Please do tell me. So thank you, goodbye, and a share.